Uh, Yay. Okay. Hello, everybody. Hello to everyone who is here live with us today for the August expert gathering of the month for Soul Camp Creative. And for all of those who are watching this recording, hello. Happy to be with you in the cloudosphere. I am so excited today to talk to my new friend and to bring on our amazing expert, Laurie-Ann Morabito. Laurie-Ann, am I saying that right? Morabito?
Yes, you are.
I did it. I did it. For the very important and hot topic of speaking, which so many of you have questioned me and Ali about, have thought about how to get on more stages, how to get in front of more people with the message that you're creating and cultivating with Soul Camp. And so I am just so honored, Laurie-Ann, to have you here today as our August expert of the month. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. I love sharing this message.
Oh my gosh. Well, I am so honored. And so I'm going to introduce Laurie-Ann. Let me just let in people as they are joining. I'm going to introduce Laurie-Ann. And then as always, I'd love for all of us to go around the table, so to speak, and introduce ourselves, introduce our brand, introduce what we are doing in the world, and what we would love to learn here with Laurie-Ann as we have our incredible expert. So let me start with your introduction, Laurie-Ann. So ready to stop wasting time, energy, and money on marketing tactics with so-so results? Yes. Are you ready to elevate your personal and business brand that you're creating with Soul Camp, to be positioned as the expert to attract those perfect paying clients and to monetize your authority? Yes, yes. Well, then speaking is the answer. Every day, there are more than 7,500 meetings, conferences, and more in-person and virtual events looking for speakers like you to share their message and expertise. These meeting planners are looking for you. So today, we're going to join Laurie-Ann to learn why speaking should be part of your marketing plan, how to find the right events to speak at, pitch yourself to the decision makers so that you hear that yes. Laurie-Ann will be sharing the process she's fine-tuned and that she teaches her private clients and has been using for years as a professional, well-paid, and award-winning speaker herself. I am so excited personally, Laurie-Ann, to learn from you and to learn even just how to better position myself as a thought leader in branding and finding your message. So I'm just so excited for all of this. So with that, let's just go around the table. Dana, do you want to go first? Tell a little bit about yourself, your brand, what you're doing, what you're excited to learn here today.
You bet. Morning, everybody. Oh, it's morning where I am. I'm Dana Killian. I am an author. I write a mystery series, and I have a new memoir coming out in May. And Soul Camp has been working with me on my branding, Beyond the Shadows. And the shadow part is the connection between what I write in my mysteries and what my memoir is all about. Happy to be here.
Amazing. And Donna, do you have anything specifically you'd love to walk away with, learning, knowing, being?
I haven't done a whole lot of speaking. I've been on a few panels related to my mysteries. So the idea of exploring speaking as I move into the themes related to memoir, the specific memoir, it's a brand new world for me. So I'm starting from ground zero on that.
Beautiful. Thank you. Kate, do you want to go next?
Hello. Hi. I'm Kate, and I have a company called Heart Speak. It's a program for young women teaching inner education. And I'm excited to learn a little bit more about branding because I'm trying to figure out how to make what I put out there congruent with my message. congruent with the design, congruent with the content of what I'm putting out into the world. So I'm really just listening today just to hear what you have to share. I'm really excited. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Michelle, I know that you're not on video and that you're on the phone, but I don't know if you're able to pop in and introduce yourself. Maybe not. She might be driving. All right, Paige, moving on to Paige. Can you say a little bit about yourself?
Sure, I just had to unmute. Hi, I'm Paige. And I have been a photo organizer and a home organizer for a few years now. And after a while, I started to realize that it's not really about the stuff, it's about the stuff. So I got into coaching and have been working my way through that. And now I'm working with Soul Camp to try to probably the same thing that Kate just said, like make sure that my messaging is all cohesive and makes sense to people, because I'm still doing organizing, but want to move more into the coaching and the headspace involved in that. So I'm here just to hear what is said about speaking. I've done a couple workshops here and there, but just not a lot. So I'm interested to hear where I should be headed.
Yay, amazing. Thank you, Paige. And as always, in these conversations with these incredible experts, as you have questions or if you want more information, please use the chat. That is how we're going to do it today. Use the chat, type your question there. And with that, Laurie-Ann, I'm going to pass the baton over to you. I am so excited to really listen in and learn today. And so with that, Laurie-Ann,
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is a passionate topic of mine, and I'll dive a little bit more into who I am, how I got here. But seriously, as I'm speaking, if you have any questions that come up, just literally like type them over in the chat. And somebody please remind me why I'm asking you to do that. There's actually two reasons. One that I want to make sure that you do later on in the future. So like Michelle said in my introduction, 7,500 speaking opportunities every single day. That's from MPI, Meeting Professional International. That organization is the one who abstracted that statistic back in 2018. Now, back in 2018, when it was more of a unique time than the past couple of years, that meant if you all are living here in the United States, that's 150 opportunities every single day for you. 150. I live close enough to Massachusetts and Boston, so I consider that to mean that I actually have 300 opportunities every single day. But now, with the virtual speaker and the virtual audience not going anywhere, that means that every single one of you has 7,500 opportunities to get in front of your ideal clients. However, 7,500 I think is grossly underestimated now, because the past couple of years has opened up so many more opportunities. That number was really based on meetings and conferences that were in need of speakers. I literally have had clients, I'm thinking of Jen in particular, who is a Lyme disease expert. And in the past couple of years, she's actually been pulled in to speak at support groups. So support groups that never had the opportunity to have somebody come in and speak, now all of a sudden, there's just this amazing opportunity for you to be speaking several times a month to several times a day. But it's a matter of finding those people. You know, when you go to the circus or the fair, and there's that person who is like blowing up those balloons, and then they like wrap them up and then they turn them into animals. Yeah, there's an association for that. There's literally an association for everything that you can imagine, you know, from home organizing to authors to mystery authors, just everything. Michelle, I'm sorry, I don't know what you do specifically, but there's an association for everything. And if you type in associations just here in the US, there's thousands of them. But you might be wondering a little bit more about like, well, all right, like, so who is this woman? How did I get here? And I am going to share my slides, share my screen. All right, let me get the right one up here. I have two sets of slides here because one, I want to share with you what some of the benefits of speaking are.
And let me know if you have any issue. Oh, there, good. Okay.
Thank you. Oops. It's just all on my end because I try to hide the slides, but there's really no way to do that. Warren Buffett said, if you learn public speaking skills, you'll actually increase your value by 50%. And I think as entrepreneurs, if you learn public speaking skills, you're actually going to increase your value, your brand awareness, your company value by about 75 to 80%. I mean, there's just so many reasons why we learn public speaking, because public speaking really is just a form of communication. So a little bit about me. I am actually, and you'll find this hard to believe, especially if you're watching the replay, that I am actually a reformed, painfully shy girl who couldn't even make eye contact with people. And there was a point in my life where all I would do is like look down at the floor and considered myself to be an expert of tile floors and sneakers. I'm not going to really go into that story very much about how I accidentally became a speaker. If you listen to my podcast, I do refer back to it frequently or when I'm a guest on someone's podcast. But I have literally been speaking when my first speech was not very good. Let me just stop sharing here for a minute. I want to share with you my first speech. My first speech went something like this. I was asked to speak. I wasn't very good at speaking. I didn't know how to do this, but I said yes. And because self-integrity is one of my highest values, I did it anyways. Well, I got up there to speak and I stepped into becoming the college professor, which is one of the 3 different types of speakers that I think are out there. And all I did was teach and dish out lots and lots of information. Here's how I ended. Okay, now I'm done. And if you want to speak to me, I'll be in the back of the room. I just wanted to get away from people. So I literally said that. I was just like, okay, now I'm done. And like now looking back on it, I think it's hilarious. And the reason why I share this story with you is because I want people to understand that you don't have to be very good. But guess what happened? People walked up to me in the back of the room and said, so do you work with clients? Like, is there a website that I can find out more information about you? And I thought, did you not see the train wreck that just happened? But that's what speaking literally can do for you. And now it's like, I literally can like look back on this and laugh about this particular moment. So let's see. So a little bit about my past. So after that train wreck of a presentation, I did still pursue speaking because it was such a wonderful way to attract people. But I ended up speaking in the leadership and corporate engagement and coaching people in that area. So today I would be considered a master coach, and I've had the opportunity of working with Fortune 500 and 1,000 companies. I do have a podcast, which is called Be in Demand. And today I help people like yourself, entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, really leverage speaking opportunities. And here's some of the people that I've had the opportunity of meeting because I was in the speaking world. And some of these people you may recognize. So in the upper right-hand corner, that's Amy Porterfield. Working our way clockwise, down on the bottom is Darren LaCroix, who was the 2012 Toastmasters World. I can't remember exactly the title, but he was like considered the public speaking world champion. And then moving over, that is James Wedmore, and then up on the top is Randy Gage, but probably the one that I enjoyed the most is the gentleman that's right in the center. And if you're from the Boston area, he'll probably look familiar, except for that jersey is not his. He is one of the iconic Boston Bruins players. So because we got some new speakers here, let's just get out of the way some of the myths about speaking. In order to get booked to be speaking, you have to have experience speaking. You know, a lot of people think, but I'm new in my business. Doesn't matter. You have to have some sort of a certification. No, that's not true either. Speaking's just for extroverts. That is so far from the truth. Matter of fact, I would consider myself to be an introvert. And like you already heard, I'm a reformed, painfully shy girl. And you have to be perfect. You do not have to be perfect. So for a couple of you who've already shared with me that you want to make sure that your messaging and everything is nice and cohesive, that comes down to also your personality. And if you can just bring out your personality in your speaking, even if that means making a few mistakes here and there. As a matter of fact, here's a great story for me to tell you. I have been known to get a little sidetracked, which is also why I'm telling you guys, like, if you got any questions, just type them over in the chat. I have gotten a little sidetracked and then forgotten what I was going to say next. Now, that's a big fear of everybody that I personally work with or who's ever in my group programs. And I have literally like taken one hand, put it on my hip, and I realize you can't see a whole lot of me. And then I've just kind of looked down at somebody and said, what was I talking about? They actually think it's just part of the act, so to speak. And it just makes you more human. So I want to share with you, do not worry about having to be perfect, because your personality will just show up. And the more you can be you, your audience will fall in love with you. So how many of you guys would say that, yeah, you can tell I'm a little bit passionate about what I'm talking about? Yes, yes, okay, yeah, I am. You're like getting a sense of my personality. All right. So let me just share some benefits to using speaking as as your best form of marketing. And some of these you might have thought of, and some of these you might be like, oh, I never thought of that. Your expertise, you get to showcase your expertise. You're also going to be positioned as the expert. It's that instant authority. Your audience, whether it's in person or virtual, suddenly becomes a referral base for you. They can either hire you, but they can also tell, if they're not the ideal client for you, they can tell people about you. You'll be able to sell from the stage or be able to pitch something or share something. That's the next best step for the audience, the people who want to deepen the learning. You'll be able to organically grow your email list with quality leads. You'll build that know, like, and trust instantly. You get to promote you, your business. It's also one of the most efficient forms of marketing, in my opinion. You'll be able to attract higher paying clients, OPA. Now, this is probably one of my favorite. Other people's audiences, other people's platforms. As a matter of fact, I will share with you how I got here. I had a woman on my podcast as a guest. She then turned around and said, hey, I have a mentorship, a mastermind. Would you come in and speak about speaking? So I did. And one thing that I'll encourage you to do, that because when I was done speaking, this is how speaking literally can snowball. I asked her, because I don't typically charge for things like what I'm doing here right now, what I did for her, could you introduce me to 2 quality leads, people who would benefit from my message? And that's how I got introduced to Michelle here. So it'll also increase your visibility. Now, how many of you, just a raise of hands, because we got some people with their cameras off, how many of you looked me up on the internet? Yeah, okay. That's typically what happens. Thank you, Michelle. It's typically what happens. And so it's also going to increase your website traffic. So that particular benefit here always surprises people. People are going to start following you on social media. You'll be able to create videos. speaking's another wonderful source of revenue. So this could almost become like a side gig to your regular gig. And then you'll be able to repurpose parts of this, of your speaking, into like long and short form videos. And then you'll be able to also raise your fees. So those are just some of the benefits. So I'd be super curious if you could just type in the chat, pick out 3 benefits that you see that you're like, here's why I would use speaking. Just pick out like 3 of them. I'm always curious to like what the 3 are for people. Yeah, just pick 3, the 3 that just really resonate with you. Michelle says more clients, more speaking gigs. Yes, because speaking literally snowballs, more opportunities. For me, it's like, it's building my email list. It's being able to, it's for brand awareness. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing. But speaking today, speaking in stages needs to be redefined. And speaking is so much more than stages, and it is so much more than just Zoom. There are so many different forms and platforms out there today. I would say that if you have a podcast, you have built your own stage. I have a podcast, so I've built my own stage. I mean, just look through this list, and I'm going to like list it off because I know that Michelle is driving or not able to see things. You can have a YouTube show. You can IG stories, IG lives, Facebook live streaming. You can have some sort of a weekly show. You can speak in Facebook groups. There's summits, there's panel discussion. I've had clients get on TV, business and sales presentation, because speaking literally is not just for the big giant audiences. It can be just like those one-on-one opportunities, like you're doing a sales call, TED Talks, meetings, conferences, being a guest expert like what I'm doing here in a private community, and even the radio. So that is like a long list. So the whole reason why I shared that is because I really want you to understand that speaking comes in many different shapes and sizes. And to really start looking at, well, where am I already going? What areas am I in that my ideal client is in that I might be able to be that speaker? So this is where I want you to pull out a piece of paper and just like write down. We're just going to take a moment just to like write down, where are you hanging out? What professional associations do you already belong to? Think about the places that you're paying membership dues to. The reason why I'm asking you to just kind of like dive into this is because there are speaking opportunities that are right under your nose, that are right around you. You just haven't looked at them as an opportunity, and they don't know that you're a speaker, so they haven't asked you. And that's mostly what I'm going to end up talking about, because I want to share with you how you can actually hear yes from those places. So feel free to, if anybody wants to unmute themselves and just share with me, like, what associations do you already belong to? What Facebook groups do you know of that have guest speakers in? What masterminds, do you know of, like maybe some of your ideal clients are in masterminds? I want you just to kind of like think about that. Michelle, I see that you unmuted.
I can unmute. So I'm part of the Women's Media Group. I'm part of Haven Co-working Space. I'm part of Chief, which is a group for co-founders and those in C-suite spaces. I'm part of Luminary, which is a New York City co-working space / opportunities for speaking. I'm part of a bunch of different like Facebook groups like Dreamers and Doers and the FEMPs, and that's what comes to mind right now.
That's a huge list.
Is it?
Yeah, because this literally snowballs.
Yeah.
Literally snowballs. I'll tell you about one of my clients, Joe. he got back to me. He said he spoke at an in-person event, a business, a local business event. And he kind of like checked back in. He was like, Laurie-Ann, it's just like you said. People walked up to him afterwards and 3 people handed him a business card saying, I need you to come speak in my group, my meeting. I'm on a committee. 3 different people. One talk is going to turn into 3 more talks for him. So yeah, and I've had other clients that are part of Chiefs and that they've run their own webinars. And it's just a great way just to get out there. Like the people that are in Chiefs or in some of these other groups, you're probably, a lot of the people that are there. So it's not going to be as scary to speak because they want to support you. They want to learn from you. Your audience really does want you to win. And I share that with you because a lot of times people, back to that, I got to be perfect if I'm a speaker, but your audience really just wants you to win. They want you to do really well and they want to learn from you. So you've got this long list or this short list or like Michelle's list that she just shared with us. Does anybody else want to share some of their list? Doesn't have to be all of them. You can just share a couple. Everyone's nice and quiet. Okay, I can move on. I'm one of those participation speakers. I should have told you that in the beginning. So here it is, you're part of these associations, for example, or a Facebook group. And what you want to do is you want to find out who's in charge of bringing in the speakers. Who is the decision maker? And then what you want to do is, I have a belief in how do I open the door to have the conversation? So I'm sure that all of us here are on Facebook. Have you ever been part of some Facebook group where somebody puts a post up that says, hey, I'm looking for some speakers to speak at my summit, my retreat, my mastermind, my membership. And then you get like a whole flood of people who say, me, I can do that. I can do that. It's like, you don't even know what kind of speaker they're looking for. And that person who put the post out, like, I don't even, like, if it was me, I'd be like, but you didn't even tell me what you want to speak on or what your specialty is. So I believe in just, let's open the door to having the conversation. So my pitch literally is something under the idea of, and put this in your own voice, I was curious to learn more about what the process is for booking speakers for our monthly meetings, for the weekly lives. You insert that in there. You might want to even say like, hey, I've been a member of this particular club for the past 3 years. All you're doing is you're just opening the door to having the conversation. And that's when they'll explain to you, hopefully, what it is, like, oh, this is what we're looking for, or we book this far in advance. So the reason why I like to open this door is because every association, every organization is different. Some people are booking month to month. And then there are certain organizations and associations that book their entire calendar all at once. So you need to know when that particular time frame is so that you would submit your information to them ahead of time. There was a conference that I was actually applying for, and I use this exact approach. I'm just curious to what your process is. And he told me, and this is the longest I've ever heard, they start booking and planning. They start booking speakers and planning their conference 18 months in advance. That's a big national association, first of all. But I just want you to realize, like, it's different for everybody. So by opening the door, you're just gathering information. So in other words, if I learned of an association, I'm going to take an HR association that I spoke for when I was in the leadership arena. They, during like November and December, is when they actually, and this is down south, they do this. Their calendar year goes from January to December. Unlike here in the Northeast, the northern part of the United States, typically it goes from September to June, where they'll take 2 months off, but down south, they actually just don't take any time off. So you need to know when they're actually going to be booking. So like it's August. This might be too early to actually submit my information. So by knowing, oh, you start, like thinking about your calendar in November. So when would you like me to submit information to be considered as one of your speakers? And they'll tell you the middle of October. So when they tell you what it is, put it on your calendar and do not submit your information anytime sooner, because it's probably just going to get lost. They're going to forget about it. It will be in some long forgotten email that you had sent out. Just send it to them when they actually are requesting it.
And I can vouch for that from a soul camp perspective, because we would always, we had about 30 speakers for soul camp when we were doing it, and hidden information, it's coming back in 2023. But when we were doing it, and throughout the year, we would like just get emails from people being like, I would love to be a soul camp instructor. I would love to be a speaker. And it was so unfortunate because we like so couldn't think about it right there. And it just really left, it was, it went into a unread pile. So truth to what you're saying, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that story. You just never know. Like I had another client, and she is a storytelling expert. And there was a cruise that that hosted this conference. She wanted to be on the cruise. Once she wanted to go on, she wanted a free ticket for the cruise. It was her ideal clients that were going to be on this cruise. And she sent them an email, kind of like a soft pitch, letting them know kind of like what she does. How do they go about deciding on speakers? Crickets for 2 years. And she finally got an email. I said, hey, we'd really like to have you come speak at our conference that we're finally going to host this year. But you also don't know, because I'm just going to use Dana. I'm just going to use you because you speak about, like you write mystery novels and also the memoir, but I'm just thinking like mystery. Let's just say a writer's conference, but they are focusing on, like something complete, autobiographies or something. But they may not see you as in their wheelhouse. So just because you don't hear yes right away, just might mean that what you're talking about might not correlate with the theme that they have for an event, for a conference, for a fall conference, for a spring conference. You also want to just kind of do as much homework as you can. So I share that with you because you just never know. Like Michelle, like your 2023 event, maybe you've got a certain theme that's coming, and this is what we're going to focus on. So you want all of your speakers to be on this particular topic or subtopics, and not something that's like out in left field. As a conference organizer, you want that cohesive experience for your audience. And you as the professional, as the speaker, sometimes we have to change our titles so that it blends with the theme. I have a client who just pitched herself, and that was right in the information about the conference and the pitching application, was that you may be asked to change the title of your speech. So it was basically them saying, don't be so attached to your title. Like we just might need to change it. So, and if you see me just kind of like looking over here, I've got a ton of notes because I've got, like 20 years of experience in speaking, and I want to make sure that I share everything that I want to share today. So there's lots of places that you're already attending. So just start taking notes. Maybe you have like a list, build some sort of an Excel sheet about, like here's my list of different events that I see coming and going where my ideal clients might be hanging out. I would also recommend that you ask your ideal clients, so what kind of conferences do you go to? Take note when they tell you that they're going to a particular conference. Write it down. There's a lot of conferences that are held year after year after year. But again, you just need to find out, when do they start booking it? Especially if your ideal client is there, chances are there's more people in that audience who are going to be your ideal clients as well. So you just start building a list. Now with that list, this is one of my speaker tips. You can reach out to them, especially if it's a nearby conference. And let's just say, when I say nearby, I'm thinking like it's an in-person event. If it's an in-person event that happens to be near you, and you get to decide how far away you are willing to drive last minute. You look at the calendar, it's like, I'm actually available that day. They also already have all their speakers booked. I'm going to reach out to them anyways. And you let them know that you are available if something happens to one of their speakers. As an event planner, as a meeting planner, conference organizer, their job, because people bought tickets to things, think of it this way. So they have to make sure that like they are giving their audience all of the speakers. I mean, you don't want a meeting planner doesn't want to get up there and say, well, 2 of our speakers didn't show up. It just doesn't look good for the conference or the meeting planners. So you can let people know that you are available last minute if something happens. There are lots of reasons why people can't show up. Family emergencies, an illness, weather, especially come the winter, but lately there's been like the airlines having their own crisis. So there's a lot of people who are having trouble getting to where they need to get to on time. You literally could be the person who shows up with your red cape, saving the day. And if anything, even if you don't get the speaking opportunity, that meeting planner is just going to remember, Dana lives in the Boston area and she reached out. I realize you live on the other side of the coast of the country, like from me. But that's what you'll get that reputation of, that's a professional. That's what a professional does. I'm available on this day. Here's what I talk about. And you might be the person who fills in. Now, I will share with you a story. My husband is in the trash and waste and recycling business. And I went to a plastic, scrap metal conference with him. And I always make it a point to I got to find out who's running these meetings, because this is back when I was speaking in leadership, because they don't have any leadership speakers. It's just all about recycling and all the science and all that stuff. So I'm just making it a point, I'm going to go find. So somebody introduced me, and I found out that this is what it was. The guy that was planning and had a scrap metal conference. It was their annual business conference. And it was in 2 months. In April. So my next question was, because he already had all of his speakers, was, when do you start planning for next year? He said November. I said, fantastic. We exchanged business cards. I'll reach out to you in November. He called me 2 weeks later and said one of his speakers had to bow out. Coincidentally, it was on leadership. So I slipped right in, used their title, and just gave my presentation. That presentation, they gave a free ticket to my husband to attend the conference. It was actually in Vancouver. That one conference, I then gave out some copies of my book. And there was a CEO of a recycling company in Oregon that I sent him a copy of my book because we had this really great conversation afterwards. 6 months later, he sent me an email saying, Laurie-Ann, I loved your book so much. I bought a copy for everybody in my company. He made me an Amazon bestseller that day. 6 months after that, he sent me another email saying, Laurie-Ann, I do a leadership retreat for my leadership team. What's it going to take to have you come to Oregon? And so I came to Oregon, and that was a very well-paid event. He then called me a year later saying, I am on the committee for the Recycling Association for all of Oregon for our state conference. What's it going to take to have you come to Oregon again? I tell you that story because speaking is the gift that keeps on giving. It may not appear that way right then and there, but you just never No. And that's the sort of impact that every single one of you can have. And the best way to have that kind of impact is to be outstanding on the stage. Know your message, know your stories. And I am just going to take a pause because I want to know if you have any questions with what I've shared with you so far. I still have a lot more.
Yeah, and Sylvia, just because you popped in a little bit late, I saw your email. Do you want to just, do you want to share just a little bit who you are and what you're hoping also to take away from today, just so Laurie-Ann can meet you as well?
Absolutely. Well, I live here. Hello, everybody. My name is Sylvia. I have a PhD in family therapy, so I work as a therapist. I'm also just completing a book proposal. I work with Rochelle Fredson, and I just recently finally got a literary agent after working for a year trying to get one. I was rejected 5 times, so this is the 6th agent. And I am so glad I got a no every time, because this yes really is the energetic fit that is most in alignment with the book. And, you know, everyone says it's an energetic process. And when you're going through, you're like, I don't like this energetic process. That's at least how I sounded. And so, yes, I would love to speak. I work with Terry Trespicio, and I did her program, which was amazing. Yet I know there's some unconscious blocks to speaking, but I popped in right at the moment that I needed to hear. Speaking is the gift that keeps on giving. So I would love to tap into that and really learn the skills to fine tune the message, because I tend to, as I'm doing now, take a long time to get to the message, and I keep talking, and to know my stories in a more concise way, because my husband's like, can you get to the point, or is this one of your stories, because I don't really have time to listen to it. So concise stories and message would be so helpful to learn.
That's good. But you know, it could also just be like your husband's got this like belief about you that every time wife starts to speak up about a story, he's just like, oh. I mean, I've got friends like that. Like he will say that he'll do this to his wife, shorten the story, or he's just like, turn the corner, honey, turn the corner. But me, who doesn't have that much experience with hearing all of her stories, like I've just never heard the story before. I have no idea that she like goes on and on and on forever. So it could also just be, you know, like he's a little too close to you.
Probably, hopefully.
But with stories, I will share with you all at this moment that you want to have the audience experience the story. So in other words, you don't want what I call a play-by-play. So I will just use this grocery store spontaneous example. So I had to cook dinner. So of course I didn't have any, you know, of the ingredients that I wanted to cook for dinner. So I had to like go to the grocery store, and, you know, oh, I also needed some tuna. So I picked that up. And while I was in the dairy section, I heard this voice. Oh my God, it's my neighbor from down the street. And she's very talkative and so chatty. Like that's a play-by-play, and it's like check, 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 versus I wanted to make this special dinner because it was our anniversary. And so during the course of the day, like I was just making this mental list of what I needed to pick up at the store. And while I was at the store, like picking out the perfect cheese to make the fondue with, I hear this voice. And I'm like, oh my God, it's the gossiper from down the street. One's a play-by-play, and one is I am inviting you into the story. You are experiencing it with me. You all have key stories. And I'm going to tell you to learn your story over and over and over again. Say it on repeat, because you can use the same story again and again and again. Dana, what's your favorite movie?
Rear Window.
Rear Window. And how many times have you seen Rear Window?
Probably 5 to 10.
5 to 10, even though you know what the ending is.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And why is that you've watched that movie 5 to 10 times?
It's the same thing as reading a good book. You want to get into it. You want to feel the experience that that protagonist has.
I love that. Thank you. And I'm glad and I'm sure that you enjoyed it just as much every single time you saw it. All of us have a story, have a movie that you're like flipping through the channels. And it's like, for me, one of them is Pretty Woman. I see Pretty Woman on because it brings back certain memories for me. I'm going to watch it. I've like watched it, I don't know how many times, probably a lot more than 10, Dana, than your favorite movie. And I know the ending, but that's the reason why I'm sharing this, is because that's what a good story does. And your audience will not mind hearing you use the same story again and again and again. As a matter of fact, I've walked into conference halls where people have said, Laurie-Ann, are you going to tell that jackknife story? Like they already know the story, but they're interested in like, you're going to tell that one, right? And I'm like, yes, I am. So now they're excited because they also feel like they have like some insider information, but they've heard the story. But some of your signature stories, when you're speaking, to help you customize it, depending on why you've been hired or booked to speak, you can change the lesson. Same story, different lesson, depending on why you were hired, so that you can always customize. And most of your stories, you can always figure that out. So let's find some more speaking opportunities. So I kind of shared with you how to tap into your warm market. Another idea to tap into your warm market is also to reach out to people that you haven't spoken to in a long time. Just reconnect with them. Hey, it's been 5 years since we worked together at this particular company, since we met at this conference, in this mastermind. So much has changed in my world. I'm sure so much has changed in your world. Let's have like some virtual coffee, or let's meet for coffee. Love to hear what's going on in your world. And this is a great way just for you to like reconnect with people, especially this time here in 2022. Reconnect with people, and then you can share with them that you're also speaking in the topics that you're speaking on. Now they've got their like little antennas up for if they know somebody who's going to be needing a speaker in your topic area. So you're just kind of like building your warm market. I would also put speaker on your bios and have a speaker page on your website. So that's how to increase with your warm market. And it's really kind of similar to the same thing with a cold market. You want to use Google. Google will be your friend. You can also use keywords for your ideal clients. So let's just say, Michelle, what would be a couple of your keywords for ideal places that you would love to speak for?
Yeah, branding,
Mhm.
community, no bullshit motherhood.
People, well, I got to ask you a question about that because I'm also not a mom. So, but is that something that actually people?
My friend runs a successful podcast and platform called No Bullshit Motherhood. Yeah, so just the real non-filtered Instagram perfection behind the scenes, behind the screams of motherhood.
Awesome, thank you. So you would type in, like, first off, like branding is such an evergreen topic. It's never going away. And if anything, like every industry, I was just talking to somebody about this, every industry, loves to listen to topics about branding, because it's always such a great reminder for everybody, even if they just went through a rebrand. So you're going to also be looking for keywords like, for like no BS, for motherhood. Would you say coaches and consultants?
Yeah, coaches, consultants, rebrand, brand strategy, like alignment of your organization from the inside out, personal development, healing, etc.
Thank you. So I want you to use those keywords along with words like conference, meeting, Facebook group, summits. And that's where you're like, Google's going to do the work for you. You can also add in for your in-person, it could be very state specific. Or let's say you want to go to Paris or London next year and you want to speak at a conference, like some sort of like, so I'll just use, for example, like for myself, it might be some women's business speaking. I might add speaking to that, but speaking actually will bring up so many different types of events. But I'm looking for the keywords, and then I could put in like conference London 2023. And if there's any events that are already being advertised that are for next year, that information is going to come up. If it's on Google, let Google do the work for you. Once you find an event, now you need to find who's in charge. And there are so many different titles for the person who might be in charge of booking speakers. So you're going to have to like just put your investigation hat on and just go with your gut. But it'll be things like program director, meeting planner, conference organizer, education committee. You'll just have to like just use your intuition as to who should I tag or just tap into, excuse me, that might be responsible, and just ask them if they're the responsible person for booking speakers. And I would open it up as, I saw that you have a conference that's in May of 2023 that you're starting to advertise for. I was wondering when you actually are going to start booking your speakers and what the process is for picking speakers. I speak about, don't give them the title. Like for myself, I speak about how to use a form of public speaking as your best form of marketing. A couple of my well-received programs are, and this is where you would insert two sexy titles. If either of these sound like they would be interesting or of value to your audience, to your members, again, we're just customizing all this stuff, please feel free to reach out over the next couple of weeks. Now, the reason why I say over the next couple of weeks is so that whoever is reading the email doesn't feel pressured. It's just like, it's kind of open. It's like, oh, she's giving me breathing room. And that will probably get a faster response. This is what I have been doing for years, and it has worked out really, really well. Another idea for you to get booked as a speaker is, because some of you have already mentioned that you have done some speaking, reach back out to them. Using that email that, that you would reconnect with people. I can't, I'll just say like, Paige, I know that you did a couple of workshops. And let's just say I hired you for some of those workshops. So you would be reaching out to me to say, Laurie-Ann, I cannot believe it's been 5 years since I spoke for your group. So much has gone on. It's changed in my world. I'm sure so much has changed in your world. Love to reconnect. And getting back on the phone, getting back on like Zoom or just having an in-person, coffee, you'll probably get rebooked. It's been 5 years. Anything over 2 years, you can come back. If it's a yearly conference, they shouldn't be bringing you back every year, because then the audience will get too used to you and they probably will go into a different breakout room, or they'd be like, oh, like I've heard her speak before. I heard her speak last year. But that's why you going back to a conference every other year is very ideal. In this sort of a situation, I would come back for Michelle, because chances are, I think, and I don't know a whole lot about the Soul Camp back at that. I don't know a lot about their business model, but I would imagine that it might be different people this August next year, but I could totally be wrong with that. But feel free to go back. But if there's two of you, if you know of somebody who speaks on a very similar topic, but they might have a different take on things, or somebody who speaks on something that is the two of you collaborate really well together. You could literally tag team. They could speak one year and then refer you the following year. You speak at some event, and it's a really hard job to be a meeting planner and trying to find and book the right speaker. So as a speaker, I like to offer my services and my friends and my Rolodex, so to speak, the people that I know, my contacts. Hey, if you're looking for a speaker for next year, let me know what the theme of the conference is. I know speakers. More than happy to. And then I can refer like my partner or whoever it is that like I kind of like tag team with. There are so many different ways, as you can see, to build this speaking. And then when you're done speaking, have some sort of a post process, some sort of a way that you actually debrief with the person who hired you so that you get feedback, so that you get a testimonial. And then you just ask them like, hey, could you refer me to 2 other people that would benefit from my message? It's exactly how I ended up here. And it's exactly how one event turns into more. What questions do you guys have? I am an open book when it comes to this, but I will tell you, like, I have like 20 years of experience. It's kind of hard to like pack it all into 1 hour.
Yeah, no, this is so good. My question, a lot of clients and even myself and Allie, like the transition at the end of like when you're like selling from the stage or there's a call to action,
Mhm.
do you have any thoughts, tips? Is there one thing that's better than the other? Inviting people to join a group versus sign up for your email address versus here's buy my book, or like, is there one that you have found is better than the other, easier than the other? Do you have any tips?
So I personally like to keep it a little, I'm going to say low cost. However, I have been able to like attract clients, so that's like private clients, and that is more of a high ticket item. So it all depends on like how you do this. So to be able to transition, let me share this with you. There are 2 places that I tell my clients to memorize. One is your beginning and the other is your ending. And the reason why is because we all get butterflies before we speak. And if you have your beginning memorized, which for me, it's that attention grabbing section, along with you want to grab your audience's attention, because what you want to do is you want to get people to put their phones down and lean in to listen to you. And then you go into your authority section. It's what I call your authority section. It is the section that tells people why they should continue. You've got their attention, but why should I listen to you? And that's really important so that you keep their attention throughout the rest of the presentation. The second part, at the ending, the reason why I want you to memorize that is because you should be able to look at a clock and it's like my close is 5 minutes. So you can look at a clock and know I can take one more question, one short question, before I actually close. You know how long it is so that you don't rush your call to action. Your call to action should be a very natural next step. What is the most natural next step for the people who are going to be like, I want to continue this relationship with you? You are building a relationship with the audience. It's a very efficient way to grow a relationship because you're building relationships with a lot of people at one time. So how do you not sound salesy? Well, this is one of the things that I teach people is really you want to tap into people's subconscious. So I tell clients to build a story bank. The stories that would address the objections that your audience is thinking and feeling consciously and unconsciously. So they're the stories like, yeah, this works fine for her, but this won't work for me. This won't work for my industry. This would take too much time. I don't have that kind of time. I'm a mom. and money. So it's money, time, and belief. You need stories about that. And that's one of the things one of the things that I teach my clients is how you tap into that subconscious, so that when you make your offer, whatever that call to action is, it's a no-brainer for people. Does that make sense? For everybody that's on the replay?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. That
Yeah.
totally makes sense. And I love what you just said about whatever is that immediate next step. So like based on what you're talking about. So if you're talking about tools for navigating shame, let's just say,
Yes.
like if you have a shame toolbox, enter your email address here to receive this for free. Like whatever the immediate next step that makes sense is, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So let me share something else that a lot of people enjoy, and I'm going to make sure that I also read it out loud. And this is because on your website, I want you to have some sort of a booking link, for meeting planners. And here are some of the questions, because I'm sure you all have some sort of a calendar link that you can easily customize, so that if somebody wants to book you or wants to inquire about having you on there as a speaker. So here's some of the questions. You want to know what the date, time, and location of the meeting is. Is it in person or is it virtual? How many attendees are they expecting? Who's going to be in the audience? Both the type of people, the level of people. I would just leave that, like, who's going to be in the audience? Who are you expecting to be in the audience? Who are you inviting to be in the audience? And let the meeting planner, whoever's trying to book this with you, answer that question as best that they can. How did they hear about you? So that you keep doing the same thing. You do more of what's working. What program are they interested in? Who have they hired in the past? The reason for this question is so that you will get a sense, because you should look them up if you've never heard of them before. And you'll be able to tell, oh, this is a professional. This person looks like they get paid. So chances are they've got probably a budget. So what they liked about the previous speaker, what the audience liked or disliked, the results that they are looking for, because you want to know what the pain is that they are trying to solve. And what is your budget for speakers? And make that plural, because sometimes they only have X amount of dollars, but they're looking for a keynote speaker. But we've also, got to make sure that we fill all these slots for these breakout sessions. I've told people, well, I'm going to be there anyways. Would you like me to do a breakout session? It's one less speaker to hire, one less speaker to book, and it works like a charm. So that was something else that I wanted to make sure that I shared with you. So who would like to have a copy of my speaker template? Yes. Okay. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, and we can, Laurie-Ann, we can send out information about where to find you and any of these goodies that you want to give to all those who are watching live or those who are watching the recording of this session. But I'd love to just see if anyone has any final questions before we begin to wrap up. Any final, I see an MC.
I have a question, if I may.
Yes.
I'm so sorry, Laurie-Ann. My name is Maylee. I joined late, so please tell me if you already hit on this. But you were talking a bit about how one event can often lead to many more, and you never know sort of the way things can snowball. And so something I come up against a lot. I've done a few speaking gigs now, but something I come up against a lot is, if it's sort of below the budget, they're offering me below the fee that really makes sense for me to go, or after travel, I kind of end up not really making anything off of it. When does it feel like that's worth doing? And then in particular, if I can kind of add a nuance to that question, how do you how do you spin that into additional opportunities? I have so many people come up to me afterward and give me business cards, and it's almost a little bit overwhelming, and it can be hard to turn those into concrete opportunities. And again, if you've already answered this, I'm so sorry, and I'll watch the recording.
No, I appreciate the question. So I'm hearing a couple of different questions here. So whether or not, if their budget is below what makes sense for you, like the speaking opportunity that I told you about, where I came out for the leadership for the waste and recycling organization, I did ask him, because my speaker fee, especially it was going to be for a couple of days, that scared him, and it was above what he was above his budget for bringing in a speaker. He'd never brought in a speaker before. So I did ask him what his budget was. He told me what it was, and I said, okay, I was willing to do it for that, and I would bill him for my travel expenses separately. And he didn't flinch. He was like, okay, fine. So that's another way that you could just say, like, like it's below my speaking fee. However, there's always an exchange of value. And I'm going to stress that for everybody, whether you're speaking for fee or speaking for no fee, you are never, ever, ever speaking for free. It's no fee, because there's an exchange of something. Like Michelle already knows that I'm going to ask her for referrals to 2 quality referrals, 2 quality leads that I can then possibly get in front of. Like so that's my exchange, along with being in front of you. And some of you will come and follow me. And some of you maybe even become clients of mine. But you have to decide whether it's worth it or not. I do sometimes think that maybe you want to go and attend, like, have you attended before? That are the right people in the audience? Could also be, I've got a client who becomes a sponsor at the conferences that has her ideal clients in, and they give her an opportunity to actually speak in front of her ideal clients. For her, this is nothing but an expense, an investment, but she's also has the opportunity to get in front of her ideal buyers. So I hope that answers first part of the question. The second part about how, all these people that come up to you afterwards, congratulations. That's what I call spin-off business. But if it is very overwhelming, then there's probably some sort of a system that you might want where you are actually putting people, like, they need to book a call with you. And putting them through some of those questions will actually help you vet out, who should I be following up with? Who should I not be following up with? Does that help you?
Yeah, it really does. It's funny. I think a big part of figuring out how to speak, how to turn this into a business, which is an odd thing to even have to think through, is oftentimes putting more concrete and measured steps to it. So that's a great point, to sort of funnel that into a codified process so that it's less overwhelming. That's super helpful. And I just have to say, I loved your idea about reaching out to local conferences as like a sort of backup available speaker. I thought that was genius. I hadn't heard that.
Thank you. Thank you. And on that also, if most of you live near like a big conference center, they have boards, and they have calendars, and will tell you who is coming when, like what the name of the conference is. And typically there's also a contact person for that particular event. So that's another great idea. I mean, I'm like right outside of Boston here. And when I'm down in Florida, like I'm just outside of Fort Lauderdale. And so those are 2 huge conference centers. So just tap into some of these kind of like these indirect ways of getting in front of your ideal clients, getting booked to speak. Speaking also, again, I just want to address about the exchange of value. There was a company that I spoke for, and their speaker fee was a little below what my speaking fee was at the time. However, what I did was I offered them, well, maybe you'd like to buy a copy of my book for everybody at a discounted rate. My book is self-published, and they said yes. Now there's a speaker budget, but there's also an education budget. And again, these are things that you would learn once you're on the phone with them, having that conversation. Because they bought a certain number of copies of my book so that everybody could have a copy, that the profits that I made from selling the book actually met and exceeded my speaker fee and also my my transportation, my travel expenses. But this particular company, I actually told them this afterwards, that they could get a speaker of the same caliber as myself and not have to pay them. They had the most amazing audio visual department that would record and videotape all of their meetings and trainings. This was for a very large insurance company. And that quality video for somebody like that's worth $10,000 to $12,000. A really good speaker would look at that and be like, yeah, I'll do that. Like 3 cameras, absolutely.
Yeah, I was just gonna to echo that because it's interesting. Allie and I, years ago, we were asked to speak at the Institute of Integrative Nutrition Global Conference, and it was an audience. It was thousands of people, live and virtual, and it was a very big state. We spoke at Lincoln Center, and it was wonderful and amazing. And we did it for free because we wanted the experience of speaking in front of that many people. We wanted the video, and we wanted to then be able to say we spoke at the global conference of IIN to the next stage and the next stage and the next stage. So we agreed to do it for free for those reasons. Also, it was our demographic that we're standing in front of for sure. And what ended up happening was they took our video and they put it into their evergreen digital school. So we're a whole module. So even now, today, years and years later, literally 6 years later, we get clients and we get referrals and get consults from that one speech that we did that was filmed and modularized into an educational component of their school. So yes, I love that because a lot of people will say, no. I mean, for Soul Camp even, for the many years we said, we can't pay you. We have no money to pay you. However, you can have a space in our store. You can sell your products. You can, this is your ideal demographic. And year after year after year, some of the most well-known spiritual teachers, speakers, authors would come because they knew they would fill their mastermind. They knew that they would fill their group program. They knew that they would fill. So it's a good conversation to be had and to think about what is the value add here, for sure.
Absolutely. And, again, there's so many different ways to do this business, and you just have to decide, how do I want to do this? Because I believe that, speaking needs to blend with your personality, but also your business model. If you've got 2 little kids at home, there's no way that you're crossing the country to go speak at some industry conference, but you might say like, I'm available virtually, or, here's another great one. Decide how many times you're going to speak each year. Decide how many times you're going to speak for no fee each year. Because, like, for example, I'm just going to use you, Michelle, as an example. Let's say Michelle reaches out to me and says, hey, I want you to speak at this mastermind. It's like, but it's a no paid particular gig. I might say, I have already reached my quota for 2022 for my pro bono, but I'm happy to book you for next year for 2023. How does that sound? And she might be like, oh my God, I better get on her calendar quick. Like that simple sentence, that little bit of dialogue. Actually, one of my clients, she increased her revenue by 400% just by doing that. She's in the quilting industry, which is something like a $9 billion industry, which I'd never realized. But this particular industry, very short window for conferences, it's only during the summertime, and they do not book very far ahead. And I remember her telling me this. She goes, they're not, she was one of those, yeah, that won't work in my industry. That's not going to work. I can't get them to do next year. Well, guess what? She tried because she was already booked. And people started saying, yes, I'll book you now for next year. It's also something like, as a meeting planner, it's like, check, we've got our June speaker for next year. We don't have to worry about that month. Let's worry about July now.
No, it's so good.
Yeah.
everyone, I'm just aware of the time. So I know we're at time, but Laurie-Ann, thank you so much.
Thank you.
What a gift to have your experience and expertise, and just even to hear you and watch you can just so feel and see, you know, what a experienced, knowledgeable speaker you are. So I just so appreciate you spending your time with us today. And I would love to send out some more information for all of those watching live, for all of those watching this recording, where to find you, how to learn more about working with you and engaging with you. So I will send all of that out along with this recording to all of those who are on here live who might want to learn more about you.
Thank you, Michelle. And I just want to add in there, like, I'll give you guys like a directory of places to speak. But if that resonates with you, just shoot an email to me and say, hey, I really like the directory, but that you want a copy of my speaker template.
Awesome.
I only do that for situations that I speak like this.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Laurie-Ann.
You're
And
welcome.
thank you for all of you who have joined us. Stay tuned for our next Soul Camp Creative gathering in September. Send me an email. What do you want to learn about? What do you want to know more about? Is it TikTok? Is it book publishing? Is it, you name it? Because as you all know, our network is vast. So I would love to really bring more experts in the coming months that are what you are wanting to learn about, just like this month. So again, Laurie-Ann, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And I will see you all soon. Bye.